Private one-to-one sessions have returned with Brad Johnson and Adronis, with appointment times from 30, 45, and 60 minutes online. Offline sessions including the 3 questions by email and distance healing are now available. Book your session now through our website, wisdomtransmissions.com.
Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about something quite interesting, and it is all about feeling God's source with one breath. I know there are many of us who scour YouTube, who scour the internet, trying to find these miraculous breakthrough practices to help us connect back to our source, to the God source, to Spirit, to God, to the Godhead, to all that is. And we look with a lot of determination to see if there is a speaker, if there is an expert, if there is a teacher, if there is a healer, if there is a guru, if there is a master, about trying to teach us this one superb technique that will change the entire landscape of our life, from all the dirtiness, from all the toxicity, from all of the debris that we carry with ourselves, thinking that this one expert, this one teacher, this one master has the answer, has a golden ticket. Unfortunately, there's no such thing. You have to look at something that is personable to you. You have to make it great. It's kind of like looking at an object that if you hold up this golden bar, thinking that it is so valuable, it is so precious, oh, well, maybe it's worth more than I am. I certainly remember those old phrases. Be careful with that, it's worth more than you are, right? And this again just becomes erroneous ignorance of thinking that a practice or a method or some type of teaching that's given by somebody else is going to make you great. That's thinking backwards. That's working backwards. That's not how it works. So with this practice that I'm going to give you, the great thing about it is that it is meant to be personable for you. You are going to make it great. You are going to make it phenomenal. You are going to make it wondrous and extremely helpful for yourself. And as the title says, finding God's source with one breath, that's all it is. It will differ for every single person. And so here is the key to the practice itself. It does not matter what you are doing. It doesn't matter if you're driving a vehicle like I am. It doesn't matter if you're sitting on your couch. It doesn't matter if you're washing the dishes. It doesn't matter if you're having a shower or a bath. It doesn't matter if you're at work. This can be done anywhere, at any time, as often and as frequently as you would like. So, how does it work? Well, looking at this personable exercise, just take a deep breath in, filling your lungs, and then take a deep breath out, emptying your lungs. And all you have to do is just pay attention to the breath as you fully breathe in and as you fully breathe out. And with each breath you take, I want you to feel you moving back into the center of the heart. You're moving into the center of the heart. You're moving into the center of your own being. As I talk a lot about this, right? Coming into your center. I want you to feel through your own personability that the breath you take fully with an inhale and fully exhaling is taking you to the center. It's like being a chariot. That chariot is taking you to the center. And what makes this personable is that you are simply just paying attention to the breath taking you to the center. And you're going to make this your own. You're going to make it your own authentic practice. Because once you're at the center, it no longer becomes a practice. You are simply there. So you're seeing the breath as a chariot. Now, how many breaths need to be taken is entirely up to you. That's what makes this personable. How many breaths will it take for you to feel your center? How many breaths will it take for you to feel God's source with you? How many breaths will it take you to feel completely and totally at peace in the heart, in the center of your being? That's your personability. That's for you to discover. So just before starting this video, I was working on this as well too, because I have actually not done this exercise before. This is something that was just given to me to share with all of you, right? But before starting this video, I did the exercise. And I just take a deep breath in, inhale. And exhale fully. Do you see my face? Do you see what happens? Just through that particular breath alone, I went home. Just through that particular breath alone, I went back into the center. I went into the God source. I was there. Now for you, it may be one breath, it may be several breaths, it may be a large amount of breaths. But all you're doing is you're tuning in, you're paying attention to yourself breathing in fully and breathing out fully. Through your own personability, you may breathe in fully, you may hold it for a few moments, and you may breathe out. You have to make it yours. What I suggest is that you're not coming to me for the clarity of what you should be doing, because that defeats the purpose. As I said, this particular practice is personable, right? It's not for a teacher, it's not for an expert, it's not for a guide, it's not for a master or guru or anything of that nature to show you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. That defeats the purpose of this practice. This practice is meant to be completely and totally personable to you, which means you're taking your breath and you're experimenting with it. With an inhale, can I feel that breath taking me closer to the center? With that exhale, can I feel it moving me even deeper and deeper and deeper into my source center, into the center of God, into the center of the divine? Can I unify myself with this breath? That's your assignment. That's your personability at work. As I've said, as I've tried this prior to doing the video, I did 2 breaths. After that second breath, the smile comes. That smile is my own confirmation that I'm home. That smile is my own confirmation of being in the center. You see, you don't need to spend years in an ashram. You don't need to spend years with monks in a monastery. You don't need to spend years in the Himalayas inside a cold cave trying to feel like you're doing all these advanced practices going home to God. That's not necessary anymore, right? There was a time and a place for all of that. And if there's a person who is still very much loving all of that, well, then go for it, right? But if you feel that you have to go into these deep retreats, that's just not the way of it anymore. That may have been the way several thousands of years ago, right? We look at things like the Upanishads, we look at the Bhagavad Gita, we look at the Bible, we look at all these different sacred books, and we think that we need to start aligning to the practices or the techniques or the wisdom that they share and think that we have to apply that in today's world. Sorry to tell you guys, but you don't need to do that anymore, right? That's not something that you have to indulge yourself into anymore. That was appropriate for the time. A lot of these books are many thousands of years old. And back at that time, human beings were very different types of human beings. We don't have the thinness of the veil as we do today. All it takes is a breath. All it takes is a full inhale and a full exhale. And with each breath you take, you feel yourself getting closer and closer and closer to the God source. closer to your source center. There's nothing else to it. It is something that is completely and totally personable, because you are looking at yourself. You are listening to your breath. What is that breath doing to you as you inhale? What is that breath doing to you as you exhale? Is your mind getting quieter and quieter as you are paying attention to the inhaling breath and to the exhaling breath? Are your thoughts getting thinner and thinner until they diminish with each inhaling breath and each exhaling breath? And like I said, you can do this everywhere. I'm doing it while I'm driving. Right? I don't have to sit on a couch. I don't have to sit cross-legged. I don't have to do the thousands of years practices where you feel like you have to go so deep, and you're never going to be able to talk to God unless you're going this deep and you're doing these particular types of practices. Nonsense. Okay? There was a time for that. There was a time to where our veils are thicker. When our veils are thicker, you may need to go that deep, right? Because you're ricocheting off a very thick veil of ignorance. But the truth is, my friends, is that veil of ignorance is thinning. Now, our own personal veil of ignorance may not be thinning, but the world's ignorance is thinning. If it was not thinning, you would not be able to accomplish something like this through a simple, personable practice. If it was not thinning, you simply wouldn't be able to do it. So back in the day, going back hundreds or even thousands of years, teachers would get people to become devotional. They would become devotees. They would become completely and totally into worshiping, right? Worshiping, devotion, commitment, right? Moving into that particular grace. Because the world just was, on a collective level, too thick of ignorance to understand these things. They thought that a divine holy person was the only one who was able to go into these deep states and talk to God. They thought that that was only reserved for a select few, and that's just the denseness of the collective ignorance at that time. This is why when you go back into these sacred books and you look at things that have been written hundreds or even thousands of years ago, it's just not the same today. It does not apply to today, right? Today is different. It's not to say there isn't great wisdom in them. There certainly is. I've listened to a lot. I've read a lot of the ancient texts. I've read a lot of the ancient books, the sacred books. There's a lot of beautiful wisdom in there. But again, it's talking to a people at that time. It was talking to a people who were very dense, who were very ignorant, and they basically had to go into these states of worship. They had to go in the states of devotion, ultimate conviction, just to feel like they could even get a drop of the grace of God upon themselves. Because they always thought that it was always some great master, it was some great guru, it was some great mystic, it was some great teacher, who were the only ones that were capable of talking to God. And you couldn't really tell them otherwise. They were too dense. They were just too darn dense. We still have some people like that on the planet today, of course, because they're still living in those ancient past. It's something that just recycles itself over and over and over again because they have not come to terms with their ignorance. But looking at a practice like this, for those of you who are seekers, for those of you who do want to go within, who do want to come into the center, who do want to feel the connection to the God source, this is all there is to it. It's just starting with a full inhale and a full exhale, and being attentive to what you're feeling as you inhale, to what you feel as if you may pause, because you can certainly pause there, and what you feel as you fully exhale, emptying the lungs. And you repeat, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you want to feel that confirmation within yourself. For me, that's a smiling face. When I'm talking to God, when I'm feeling God, when I'm with God, when I'm with the source center, the God source, I smile. That's my recognition. When I feel the God source, I smile. When I'm present with the God source, I smile. Okay? That's how I've identified with that, with me. That's how I identify with connecting to that source. I can't say the same for you, right? Nobody gave me that wisdom and said, oh, Brad, you know, when you connect to God's source, you smile. Nobody ever told me that, right? This is something that I had to recognize myself. There can be 1,000 different ways of how one is able to identify that they are connected at home with the source. It can be a physical sensation. It can be a gesture. It can be an expression. It can be a sound. It can be a whisper, right? It can be a gush of wind. It can be just this beautiful feeling of bliss, right? There are so many, but I'm not here to categorize what you're expecting to feel, because this is the thing. We are so completely attached to the ledger of things, thinking that this is what I need to do, because there'll be people who are writing down, let's say, okay, blissful sensation, a tingling sensation, a warmth, a gush of wind, right? And they just start writing that down and thinking that that's all there is. Throw that ledger away. If you're writing this thing on notes, I want you to take off that piece of paper, I want you to scrump it up, and I want you to throw it in the garbage. Don't take notes, right? I want you to feel this for yourself. I don't want you to feel like you have to jot these things down from what I'm sharing with you. Throw the notebook away, because all you're doing here is just being attentive of the full breath in and the full breath out. What does each breath do for you, right? Don't worry about writing it down. Feel it, right? Don't be the scholar. Don't be the notator here. Don't worry about diction. All I want you to do is feel. I want you to open up your heart, and I want you to feel every single time that you breathe in, every single time that you breathe out. How are you feeling, right? Is each breath bringing you closer to the complete and total stillness of the mind? Is each breath drawing you closer to the center, to the God source, to the source center, to home, to the abode? That's all there is to it. So make this personable, make it yours. Do not feel that a practice is going to make the person. No, the person, the entity, the soul, right? The true beingness is what makes a practice great, because you've made it great. So give this a shot. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again in the next video. Namaskar. Take care.